hopefully I'm live. As always, I'm just going to check my iPad and see. Let's have a look. Oh, and there I am. Okay. Right, so I think we're there. Well, welcome to Friday. Welcome to the first Friday in February. I can't believe it's February, but I'm quite glad to see the back of January. I think I talked about that last time. I don't know what the weather's like with you. It's chilly today, but not as cold as it has been. We've had some beautiful blue sky and sunshine, but we've also had a lot of rain. It's a bit like April out there, really. Lots of heavy showers. It's raining at the moment, so if it really comes down, you'll hear it because I've got a flat roof in my craft room, so the rain really drums on it. But I'm grateful for the sunshine we've had. So let's have a look. Sandy's here. Hi, Sandy. Nice to have you. 11 degrees and sunshine. Excellent. You're a real meteorologist, Sandy. I've no idea what the temperature is here, but it's certainly not too cold. I went out today in a down coat, but I didn't have on layers and layers underneath it, as I usually do. I just had one layer underneath, so that was a great improvement. Pam's here. Hello, Pam. She says hello to everybody. How nice to have you. Oh, well, I've got all sorts of things to do with you today. I'm hoping to make 4 cards live, so let's see if that happens, shall we? I'll try not to go too fast, but I couldn't decide which ones to make live with you, so I decided, okay, let's try and go for all 4 of them. Sandy's saying hi to everyone. Lorraine is here. She also says hello. Mary's here. I think that's everybody. I think I've missed anyone just yet. Lovely. I know Belinda's hoping to get here, but she's got problems with her internet. And everybody's blaming everybody else for whose fault it is, so she's not awfully happy about that, understandably, and she wasn't sure that she was going to have enough internet to be able to watch live. And I said, well, don't worry, you can watch the replay, so that's good. And I'm sure you all know, but you can always watch this afterwards if you miss something, or if you want to watch something again. It'll be sitting here on my Facebook page for as long as Facebook leave it there, which at the moment I think is pretty much forever. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is also called Handmade at Home with Sally Bowman, and all my live videos I upload there straight afterwards, and I've actually put them in a playlist so you can actually play all of them forever. So if you want to see any past ones that you've maybe missed or rewatch them, that's probably the easiest place to find them. Chris is here. Hello, Chris. Nice to have you. And she's here with her friend Angela. Well, welcome, Angela, as well. How lovely to have you. Where are you, Chris and Angela? Which part of the country? Mary says hi to everyone as well, so that's really nice group of people. So how are you all? What have you been doing this week? Has anybody actually done anything exciting? I've had quite a flood of emails from older friends who've all had their vaccines, their COVID vaccines, at least the first one, so that's been very exciting. I won't get mine for a little while yet. But nobody's really doing anything very exciting at the moment, are they? The highlight of my week has been FaceTiming with my daughter. I'd not done FaceTime before and I didn't really know how it worked, but it was really nice. It was a bit more, I don't know, a bit less clinical than Zoom. I don't love Zoom for personal stuff. I've probably told you that here before as well, but FaceTime was quite good, and I felt very, you know, down with the kids doing FaceTime. So that was really nice. I've got a Zoom with a group of people tonight, social thing. And what have I got happening this weekend? Nothing. Nothing. I've got a load of cleaning jobs on my list for Saturday, and I shall be doing my online art course for about half of Sunday. So yeah, so that's my exciting weekend. Chris and Angela in Newbury. Well, what's it like in Newbury, Chris? So Sandy's planning on buying things to equip her new greenhouse and making 6 cards. And she says that she was born in Newbury, Chris. So there you go. You and Sandy have got something in common. Okay, so I've also been doing loads of crafting this week, of course. Let me give you a bit of an update about what's happening in the Stampin' Up world. I'm going to briefly mention shipping. Shipping is improving. Everything's not fixed yet, but parcels are moving. I think this time last week, or certainly this time 2 weeks ago, I was waiting for about 15 parcels, and about I think 9 of them have arrived, so that's really good. I'm still waiting for a couple from the end of the first week in January. That's where the hold up is, the first eight or nine days in January. but my ones since then are moving quite freely. Everything is still taking longer than it used to, and I'm afraid that is because of Brexit. Because we've left the EU, there are 3 sets of customs procedures, and there is only one company shipping out of Europe to the UK, I think because it's all got so complicated, and that is UPS, who handle our parcels. So they have got loads of work. They're recruiting new staff. They're working 7 days a week. They've got extra shifts in, you know, they're not just working 1 shift a day. They're doing everything they can. So if you have ordered from me, I'm going to be sending out an email update hopefully this afternoon to everybody who's still waiting on an order, just to let you know what's happening. I will get your stuff to you as fast as I can, and I really apologise for the delay, but I can tell you things are improving, so that is good news. Pam, Pam says that she wished we still had C&As. That's talking about Chris and Angela, C&A. Oh, Chris and Angela are both excited. You have your vaccinations on Sunday. Well, that's wonderful. That's really good news. I'm pleased. And Chris says neither she nor Angela were born in Newbury. They came in retirement and met here. Oh, how nice. That's really nice. Okay, so that's what's happening in the Stampin' Up world in terms of deliveries. In terms of things I've been sending out this week, I've sent out all the Dandy Garden samplers, or I've got them stacked up here ready for people who are collecting them. So everything finally came for those, and I got them out as quickly as I could. I was burning midnight oil last night to get those out to you. So that's really good news. The next sampler, sweet sampler, will be coming in April, and that will be Art Gallery. I think I've swapped them around. I think it was going to be Sand and Sea, but it's going to be Art Gallery now. So that will be a little sample of all the things in the suite, and you can obviously add the stamps and dies if you want to. If you're interested in me letting you know all the details of those once I finalise them, then leave me a comment, or better still, send me a messenger message or an email, because they kind of stand out a little bit more. I do always go through all the comments from my lives afterwards, but just sometimes I think things slip through and I miss them. So send me an email or a messenger message would be best of all if you'd like more information on that when it's available. Won't be ready just yet, but coming soon. Hey Chick and Hey Birthday Chick, if you're on my newsletter mailing list, I will have sent you pictures of those last week. If you don't get my newsletter emailed every week, but you would like to, again, let me know. But Hey Chick was a really popular Celebration stamp set in 2017, so if any of you have been around using Stampin' Up things for that long, you may well have that. It obviously retired after Celebration, you couldn't get it. I did sell mine on, so I don't have my Hey Chick anymore, but they've brought it back because it was just so popular, and it does, it's the same chickens in it as the Hey Birthday Chick set, which is in the Spring and Summer catalogue. So they brought back Hey Chick stamps. Hey Birthday Chicks in the catalogue, but they've also added an out of catalogue couple of items, which are the dies, a set of dies for each stamp set. So as well as cutting out images, they also give you loads and loads of background things. The dies are absolutely fabulous. You can get them individually just as a set of dies if you've got the stamps already, or you can buy a bundle of the stamps with the coordinating dies at 10% off as usual. So if you don't know about that, you can have a look on my website. You can search the shop there, or I will be including it in my newsletter, which I'm sending out this afternoon as well. So if you're quick, you can get in and get the newsletter if you don't already. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I should be telling you. I don't think there is at the moment. I think that's kind of everything. We're in the last month of Celebration. That's the other thing I should mention. I'm getting caught up in my microphone wire. Okay, last month of Celebration. Normally it's been 3 months, but this year it's 2 months because we're getting another one in the summer. So if there's anything you really liked in the Celebration brochure, make sure to put your orders in before the end of February, because then those products will be gone and I won't be able to get them for you. Okay, any more comments? No, nothing else at the moment. Okay. As always, if you can do a like or a heart for this, and if you're able to just click share, that really helps me get seen by more people who might be interested in crafting. The algorithm for Facebook is a bit of a mystery. Nobody really understands it, and they change it constantly anyway, so it's always hard to know who's going to see my videos, but liking and sharing really helps me, so thank you so much. And I think what I'm going to do, oh no, well, I'll just tell you what I'm going to do in the live properly, and then I'm going to cover you up and turn you around. I was going to cover you up prematurely there. So first of all, I'm just going to briefly show you how to stick the labels on your cling rubber stamps, because I get asked that question such a lot, and sometimes it's much easier for me to show you than it is for me to explain how to over the phone or in an email or whatever. So I'm going to be covering that. And then I'm going to be making cards with the Enjoy the Moment set. So I don't know if that's a stamp set you've got. You might be crafting along with me. And if you want to craft this afternoon with me, but you don't have those stamps, it doesn't matter. Everything I'm doing you will be able to do with pretty much any images. And certainly if you've got any other line art images with, you know, outline drawing style images of plants, trees, flowers, things like that, then your cards can certainly look very similar to mine, and it will be really interesting to see what you make. If you do make any cards along the lines of what I've done, please share them, pop a photograph in the thread below, or send it to me some other way so I can include it for everyone to see, because it's so nice to see all the different variations. Never ceases to amaze me just how many different things you can do with ink and paper and stamps. So I'm just going to cover you over and unceremoniously block you out while I move my camera. And I will try and remember to talk to you at the same time, so you don't think I've gone away. So Pam has taken a lot of craft stash round to her granddaughter. She's furloughed and has been enjoying making scrapbooks. Thanks to me for introducing her to it in a class quite a few years ago. It was quite a few years ago, Pam, wasn't it? And she was very excited. I should think she was. I bet it was absolutely lovely for her. I mean, goodness me, who doesn't love a whole load of craft products? And it doesn't really matter whether they were somebody else's first or not, does it? Because stamps don't hurt if they are, you know, stored properly and then they're passed on. And, you know, ink and paper, terrific. How nice. All right, so what have I got? I've got my notes. Just make sure that I've got everything in front of me that I want to show you. Oh, I've got to do my settings. That's the bit I nearly always forget. Here we are. Okay, get me up the right way and round the right way. So hopefully that will be it. Right, I'm going to move the post-it note, but no doubt there'll be a little bit of adjusting to do. So bear with me while I do that. I've got to wait for my iPad to catch up. I don't think I'm very straight. That's always a problem, isn't it? Okay, oh, that was the wrong way. All right, let me just tilt that a little bit. You don't really need my thighs, believe me, or the edge of my desk. How's that? That's not too bad, is it? Let me move my grid paper down just a fraction, just so you lose the edge of the desk. Move my light. Okay, I'm just fiddling with all these wires I've got here. So hopefully nothing is going to get in the way. Right. Okay. Right, I think I'm there. Okay, so what you can see here is the catalogue. This is the mini catalogue, the current mini catalogue, and I've just opened it at page 59 just to show you where that stamp set is. And as always, there are some samples here for you to copy or for you to be inspired by. And then here's the stamp set. It's got these absolutely beautiful line art images, and I loved them the minute I saw them on this insert, but when you stamp them, they're just amazing. The detail on them is just stunning. If I was really artistic, it's exactly how I would like to be able to draw. They're shown life size on here, so they are quite a nice size. If I put my hand there, you can see, you know, that poppy is, I don't know, 4 inches or so tall. All right, so I've mounted nearly all of these, but I have saved some because I wanted to be able to show you how to do it. So first of all, on the inside of the paper insert on the stamp box, there is a pictorial description about how to do your labels, and then there's also a web address here on YouTube for you to actually have a look and see it. So there is a Stampin' Up video there. Now I've got 2 ways I'm going to show you to do this. One is the way that Stampin' Up recommend, and it's the way they show you on that insert, and the other is a different way which you may find easier. I don't know, so you can let me know. So first of all, the way that Stampin' Up show you are, first of all, you take the label sheet, and I'm hoping you can see each label has got a split on this backing paper. I'll just wait for my iPad to catch up and then hopefully be able to show you. Hi Gillian, nice that you've joined us. I don't think that is showing up very well. Let me just bend this. Maybe if I, there we go, if I just start to peel that off. There we go. So the labels have double-sided adhesive on them. One side is sticky enough to stick the stamps to your block, but not so sticky that you can't get them off again. And the other side is super sticky to stick to the actual stamp and not come off. Okay, so the first thing to say is on your label sheet, find the side where you can see that the labels are die cut around them and each one is split down the middle. Now this side with the split, this side of the label is the side that sticks to your stamp. Okay, so that is really worth mentioning. So I've got a label here, so I'm going to take that backing paper off, and the split down the middle just helps me get hold of it. So the label's still in the label sheet, but I've just taken that first part of the backing off, and then I'm going to find the corresponding stamp and just pop it out of the rubber. So it's die cut pretty much all the way around. It's just caught in a couple of 3 places. And then on the back of the stamp, on the sponge side, there is also some backing which you need to peel off, and that just keeps this smooth plastic layer completely clean, so it doesn't pick up fluff. Hi Marjorie, nice to have you here with us as well. So then I'm going to put the grey sponge layer of my stamp downwards, and I'm going to attach it to this exposed sticky label. And I always think of it a little bit like those children's puzzles. If you've ever had contact with young children, you'll know what I mean. The puzzles where you've got a tray with lots of pieces that lift out with a little knob or handle, and then you drop them back into the shape that you do with young children. My kids love them. So I think this is a little bit like that. So I've got the stamp and I'm going to drop it in to the label sheet just to fit that exposed part of the label. And sometimes it's easier to turn it one way than the other. I think I'm going to try this way, and I'm also going to try and get my head in the right place. So you want to do this slowly and carefully. You really only get one go at this. Sometimes you can peel it off and start again, but you really get one go. So I start at one end and hold it and press it down. So that's now attached, and then I'm just going to slowly lower it down on top of that label, press it down, and then peel it back. So there we go. So now the label's attached to my stamp. The labels come completely off the label sheet, and this part is sticky, but it's tacky sticky, so it's not super sticky, and that will now stick to my block. I meant to bring a spare one over. There we go. So that's stuck on there nicely. And then when you're taking these off the block, use either your nail or the spatula part of the Take Your Pick tool, tuck it underneath the edge of the stamp, and then gently pull it off. If you're not careful, you can, they stick so well to the blocks, you can pull it off quickly and you will find that the label and part of the sponge is left behind, and you've only got the rubber in your hand with a bit of the sponge. So take them off carefully. So that's the way that Stampin' Up recommend that you put the labels on your stamps. Pop that one in there so I don't lose it. So I'll quickly run through that again. Take the label sheet and have it with the side up where you can see that the labels have been cut round and each label has a split in it. And take off the layer of label that's got a split down the middle to expose the adhesive. Pop your rubber stamp out of the sheet and take the backing paper off the stamp. And then put the stamp sponge side down onto the label, lowering it down slowly and carefully and trying exactly to match the shape. And then once you've dropped it down, press it down well, pull it up, and you will find that the whole label will come off the label sheet attached to your stamp. Okay, so Ruth's here too. Hello, Ruth. And Chris is saying hi to Gillian, who's also saying hi to Chris. So you're obviously friends too, which is really nice. Right, I'm going to get rid of those bits. Now, I said that there was another way of attaching the labels. I quite like this if I'm going to be doing words. And for this, you're going to need a block. So I'm just going to lean across and get a block. I found it on my desk earlier and thought, why have I left that out? Tidied it away. And there we go. Right, Mary's asked, do I store stamps with the labels in the lid of the stamp box? Yes, I do, Mary. So this is my stamp that I've just put the label on, and I just stick it on there. If I turn that over, you can see it's just stuck on there nicely. You can stick them either side, it doesn't matter. Now some people keep the waste rubber, peel the backing off, which reveals like a cling side to it, and stick it down into their stamp case, and then they put their stamps back. So where would this one go? Down here. So they can always see if they've got a stamp missing. I've tried that and it just annoys me, so I don't do that, but you can. But otherwise, you can do what I do, and these just stick in here. And if I turn that upside down, give it a really good shake, that's not going to move from there. So they store beautifully in there. While I think about it, if you get to your stamps and you find that they're not sticking, if they're not sticking to your blocks, or if they're not sticking in here, it's probably because they've just got a little bit fluffy on here, that maybe they've got dropped on the floor. Maybe you've just handled them quite a lot. And the solution for that is to take this to the sink and gently run some water over it, just slightly warm, tepid water. Rub it gently with your finger and let it air dry, and then like magic the stickiness will come back. So don't use any more water than you need to. Keep them this way up. If you turn them that way, then your sponge will get quite wet, but that will still dry out, so don't panic. But focus on the label, just rub it gently with a finger, rub off the debris, and let it air dry, and bingo, new stamp. Prudence is here. Hi Prudence, how lovely to have you. I hope you're keeping well. Right, so this is the other way of mounting the stamps, and with this I'm actually going to take the whole label off the label sheet, and let me do that first. There we go. Now you remember that I said that the side with the split in it sticks to the stamp, so the other side sticks to the block. So I've peeled off that whole label out of the sheet, and I'm going to stick it to my block like that. So now I'm going to peel off the other backing, which is the split one, and I'm now revealing the glue which is going to stick to the stamp. Pop my stamp out of the rubber sheet and take off the backing like that, and then I'm just going to match it up so I can see that I've got this. This is mirrored obviously because it's upside down and it's a stamp, but I know which way up it is. So I'm going to turn that over, and I'm now going to turn around my block. I can read the label, and I'm going to have to pull it towards me. And I'll show you what I'll do, and then I'll pull it towards me and actually do it. And I can now locate that label exactly on top of the stamp and push it down. So I'm just going to have to move this towards me because, as I said, you really only get one go at this, and I don't want to mess it up because I can't see what I'm doing. There we are. So I now push that down, and that stamp is now ready to use. And again, get my thumbnail under it to peel it off the stamp, and that's ready to go in here. And I'm going to show you that with one more stamp, just because that's not one that you've got a picture guide for. So I don't know why I like this for words in particular. I think I just find it easier to be able to see the words as I'm doing the stamp. I should say that Stampin' Up! Go to great lengths to try to make these stamps fairly easy to fit the labels on because of the way they cut them. So this one here, it's easier if I show you on the rubber. This shape here, for instance, they could have just cut that as a rectangle, but they've actually made one side have a diagonal on it because that will make it easier to fit it to the stamp, to the label the right way round. So you will find they've got little curved bits cut out of them, or things are slightly off center. So they do try very hard to help you with that. Oh, Sandy says that's a brilliant idea, doing it this way. You're very welcome, Sandy. Somebody showed me, so I'm just passing it on. So I'm going to do that one again. So remembering that the side of the sticker with the split in it is the one that's going to be stuck on the stamp. I'm going to peel the whole label off the sheet, and then I'm going to stick that onto my block. So I've now got the side with the split facing up, and I'm just going to pull off that backing paper. It's a little bit fiddly, there we go. Okay, so that's my label already. I'm now going to find the corresponding stamp. I've already taken the backing paper off this one because I actually used it without a label. Make sure it's up the right way. Turn my block over, and again I'm just going to match that up, but I'm going to have to bring it a little bit closer to me to get right over it with my eyes in the right place. There we are. So I just go down very, very slowly and press it, and then that's my stamp with the label on. Easy peasy. I think I want that one in a minute actually, so I'm going to leave that on the block. Let me see if I can get it on there nice and straight. Okay. Right, so if you've got any other questions on labelling your stamps, let me know, but otherwise I'm going to get on with the crafting. Oh, I know, the other thing that I was going to mention, two other things. People say to me, why can't Stampin' Up put the labels on for me? Well, that's a very good question. The reason is it cuts the cost tremendously if they're using your labour rather than their labour to put the labels on. So that's why they come with them separately. And the other thing is, if you've got some of the old red rubber stamps that we used to call clear mount, so these are called cling. The ones with the sticky labels we call cling, and on your stamp box here they say cling. But if you've got some that say clear mount, then those did come with labels, but the labels were not nearly as good as these. These are much, much better labels. So if you've got the old style clear mount ones and you're finding that the labels just don't stick to your blocks, then now in the annual catalogue on page 162 we've got cling adhesive strips. So it's the same stuff that the labels are made of, but it's just clear and in strips. So you can peel off one or two strips and attach them to the foam side of your clear mount stamps. 1, 2, 3 perhaps I put on there, and trim them off, and then you will have this cling adhesive on the stamp, and so they will cling to your blocks just as beautifully as these do. So there we go. That was all the things that I've made notes that I must remember to tell you. All right, how are we doing for time? Right. I'm probably going to overrun just a little bit today, but I know you'll forgive me. So this is the card I'm going to do with you first. Finding all my bits. And there we go. All right. So I've got my poppy seed stamp from Enjoy the Moment. I've got an aqua painter here, or a water painter I should say. These are slightly different. We used to have aqua painters. These are called water painters. They're superior actually. They're much nicer to use, with just some tap water in the barrel. I wanted to do thank you. I send so many thank you cards, and I'm always sitting down and making batches of thank you cards. So quite often on these demonstrations, you'll see me make thank you cards. But of course, this could be a birthday card. It could be a get well card. It could be a sympathy card. It's a really versatile stamp set. The images work for all kinds of things. But I've got a thank you stamp, and I actually pulled that one out of the new art gallery set. So here we go. It's that thank you there. And then I have, did I say soft suede ink pad? So for these images, because they're all natural images, I quite like muted colours. Personally, I like browns and greens for these, but I have seen fabulous cards done using all sorts of bright colours, purples and oranges. So there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't choose those colours, but you'll see today that I've got more muted tones. The images are all seed pods or fruiting bodies from various plants and trees from all around the world. So that's really, really nice. There's some really nice words in here. I love a little note. Happy birthday is great. I've used that on all kinds of projects. And then a few other really nice sayings as well. So I'm using the poppy seed heads, which is probably my absolute favourite. And I'm just going to drink a little drop of my tea because I can see it going cold over here. Excuse me. Oh, that's better. I can feel my voice getting dry. So in terms of the materials, very, very simple. I've got a thick vanilla card base and a vanilla envelope. I have a soft suede layer. That's the same colour as the ink. I've got a piece of watercolour paper here. And then I've got a couple of banners which I cut using the Many Messages die So one is cut in vanilla and one is cut in gold foil. So they're different shapes to this one, just to give you a slightly different look. But essentially the card's going to work in the same way. And I have some linen thread. So again, I love to use, we've got two different kinds of linen trim in the catalogue. Plus we've got a braided linen in Mossy Meadow. So that's 3 altogether. And I just think I don't know, they just feel right when I'm using natural images like this. So I'll move that out of the way and get started. And first of all, I'm just going to stamp on my watercolour paper. And I'm going to be using water, which is why I've chosen the watercolour paper. I also really love the texture of it. It's smooth enough to stamp on easily, but it's a really nice texture and weight. So I'm just going to stamp this straight in the middle, like that. And if I hold that up, you can start to get a feel for the detailing on this stamp. It's just stunning. And then all I'm going to do is take my water painter and just paint over the image. So I'm just going to squeeze it on a little bit of kitchen paper just to get that water flowing, and then I'm just going to paint over this. So I'm not going to get it too wet, but I've just got the brush wet. If you don't have one of these, then you can always just have a jam jar of water and a paintbrush. And because it's a water-based ink, you can see that the ink is just running a little bit like if you've ever spilt your tea over something you've just stamped. I know I have. Then it's the same kind of effect. And you may have seen me do this before. It's one of my favourite techniques. It's very easy to do. Now I've got a bit of a blob of water there. I'm just going to dab that. It's quite good tempered. You can do that. So I'm just painting really inside the lines, or as inside the lines as I can manage, not using too much water, and just going over all my stamping. Now I could have taken more time and I could have left, say, let's say a highlight there in the middle, but I didn't with this. I've just gone all over it with the water. And then I'm just going to move these things out of the way and bring in a bit of scrap paper, which is my very messy grid paper from when I was crafting earlier, because I'm going to do a little bit of spattering. So I'll bring back my ink pad, turn it upside down and squeeze it so my thumbs are on the back, and then when I open it, I've deposited ink inside the lid. You can use re-inker instead for this if you want. Put a couple of little drops of re-inker in there. And then I'm going to squeeze my water painter and get some water in there, mix it round. So I've now got some quite runny ink in there, and I'm just going to do a few spatters over this, and this does go everywhere, which is why I've covered up my working area. The more you pick up and the wetter it is, the bigger the spatters you'll get. So that's some small ones. Let me pop a bit more water in there. See if I can get 1 or 2 bigger ones. No, they're all small, but that's fine. There is an element of chance with this. You never really know exactly what you're going to get, but that's fine. Now that's quite wet in there, so I am just going to dab some of that off with my paper. There we go. And then just to clean my brush, I'm just squeezing the barrel to flush water through the bristles. I could run this under the tap instead, and then once the water runs clear, if I was doing something else, I could just move to a different colour. There we go. So all our ink pads, if they say classic stamping pad on them, they're a water-based ink. It tells you on here it's water-based, and you can use this technique with anything, and it's a really easy way of giving a beautiful watercoloured look to things without having to actually watercolour paint. So that's that. I'm going to set that aside. That will dry quite quickly because I've got quite a strong light here. And I'm just going to find somewhere, I've got my labels, oh here we go. They're underneath my protective paper. Let's move that out of the way. All right, so here are my labels. I've got a little spatter on that as well, that's okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is make this one slightly smaller. So I'm just going to trim that little flag part off. like that. There we go. And now this label will fit on top of the gold one, and I will just have that little gold flag showing. I'm now going to stamp my words, and again I'll probably have to move this potentially out of shot just so I can get it in the middle, because if I can't get my head over the top of it, I can't get it central. You might be able to see that. There we are. It's a little bit high, but I think that will do. I can live with that. So I'll just glue those two together. The glue takes just a little bit longer to grab if you're gluing onto foil, because it's a shiny surface that doesn't absorb it. So I'll set that over there, and I'll start to layer up my card while that dries. So this is my soft suede layer. This is very nearly dry. It's certainly dry enough to mount on there. And I've cut this with a very narrow border, but using the multi-purpose glue means that I can slide the top panel and get my borders even, and then that just goes straight onto the card base. Chris is asking which dial punch did I use for the banner. It's the Many Messages one, Chris. Let me quickly grab my catalogue as it's handy and tell you which page it's on. So it's in the new Spring and Summer catalogue, and page 35 in here. I absolutely love this. There we go, it's this one. So the stamp is one large stamp which stamps all these messages, and then the die is one large die which cuts out all the messages in one pass. So you can stamp them in several colours on several bits of card and cut them and then just keep them in individual bags. And I've also cut some of the dies without using the stamps in Whisper White and in Very Vanilla and in gold foil, and I've got them in little bags, so they're all ready when I want to do something like this. So I just fish around in them and pull out what's going to fit. It's an absolutely fantastic bundle, this one. It will also get you a free Celebration item because it's $46.75 for the bundle, so that gets you something for free. Okay, so I've now got some linen thread. Actually, before I do that, let me just stamp the inside just in case the thread gets in the way. So you could put an insert in this if you're nervous about stamping on your card base, but I'm going to live on the edge and do it straight onto the card base. So I've just taken the same image I used on the front and stamped it slightly off the edge of my card. And while I've got the stamp, let me do the envelope as well, because I do like to stamp my envelopes. No problem, Chris. Happy to help. There we are. So that's my envelope. Now I'll shut up my ink pad. And I was putting linen thread around this. So I just felt it needed a little something. So I'm just wrapping this round a couple of times and then tying it. Tying a bow on camera live is always an adventure, so let's see how that works. That's a little bit loose. I think I might tie a double knot in this just to hold it while I put the loops in. There we go. Okay, and I liked quite long traily ends on this. I usually cut my ends fairly neatly, but I just quite like them sort of long and loose. There we go. And then finally my banner. Probably there, I think. I went with vanilla. The watercolour paper it's not a pure white, and I decided I quite liked the vanilla with it. You can certainly use white. It would just be a different white. So there we go. So there are the two cards, the same but different. I'll leave those there for you to have a little look at while I have a little bit more tea. It's funny, they're exactly the same card except for the shape of the banners, but they look different. To me, this one with the wider banner, the seed pods look wider. I don't know if that's happening for you. It's obviously an optical illusion, but interesting. Okay, so I'm going to move those aside, clear the decks a little bit. I'm going to clean the stamp because I'm going to be using that one again later with a different colour. So if you watched last week cleaning my stamps, you'll know I always dab off the worst of the ink that's left on them. And then I use my scrub. I absolutely love it. It gets the stamps so clean. And I might as well do the words while I'm at it so I don't lean on that and get words stamped onto my top. Okay. So the next one is going to be a little bit like this. I'm using my blends this time for colouring. I've used the poppies again, but I've also used this one. I think this might be Lotus, but I'm not certain. And I meant to look up which paper this wood effect paper is from, and I've forgotten to do it. I know it's in the annual catalogue, so if anybody there recognises it, let me know, please. It's the one that's got lots of natural textures. There's lots of sheets with wood patterns on it. There's brick, tile, knitted fabrics, all sorts in sort of neutral tones. It's 6x6, and I cannot remember the name of it. So let me bring in my bits for this one. And I'm going to do this one very slightly differently in that instead of paper, I've embossed a piece of card with the beautiful brick embossing folder. But other than that, it'll be pretty much the same. So I have a vanilla envelope. I've got an espresso card base with a piece of vanilla for the insert. And then I've got a vanilla layer cut just 1/8 of an inch smaller all round than my embossed piece. Those will be my layers. And then I've got vanilla to stamp on and a piece of vanilla for the words. So I'm going to put everything out of the way except for that one. And bring in my stamps. So I've got the poppies again, and then I've got this one that I'm going to call a Lotus, which may not be. If you know better, tell me. In good taste. I think you're right, Chris. Thank you very much. So I think the patterned paper here is from the In Good Taste pack. It's a really useful pack. Alright, so because I want to use my blends, I need to make sure that I use a water-based ink for this. So again, any of the classic stamping pads which say on them water-based ink, they're all fine to use with your stamping blends, but don't use something like StazOn because that's a solvent-based ink and the alcohol in your pens will cause that ink to smear. So your beautiful stamped outline will go all smeary and horrible. And I like the fact that you can use the classic inks to colour in with your blends, because that way you've got a whole variety of colours to choose from. So I'm going to start off with some simple stamping. Sally's here. Hi Sally. Sally and I went to school together, if you can believe it. That seems like a long time ago now. Well, it was a long time ago. Ooh, I've just put ink on my card. Let's turn it over and use the emergency side. There we go. I must have inky fingers. That makes a change. So I'll stamp my poppies in the middle, and then I'm going to bring this one in, one to each side. One there, and one over here. There we go. And I'll just lift that up and show you just a little bit again of the detail on those. It really is beautiful. So I'm now going to do some very simple colouring with the markers. I have light and dark Crumb Cake here, light and dark soft suede, ivory, and then I have the colour lifter as well. So the ivory and the colour lifter I'm going to use last of all, and I'm just going to use the light and darks here on the two different kinds of plants. So starting with, this is the light soft suede one, all I'm going to do is go around the poppies, and I'm just going to go round the outlines and the lines from the stamp. So I'm going round the outer outline, just following the lines that I stamped, and then I'm going to go over the main lines of the stamp. So if I just pick that up, hopefully you'll be able to see what I mean. So to start with, that's all I'm doing. Oops. Okay. Sometimes when the weather has been very cold, which it has recently, and then it warms up, I find I get just a little drop of alcohol separates from my markers, and that's just what fell there, but it's okay because it's alcohol. It will just evaporate and it won't cause a problem. So I'm just going to leave it to do its thing, and it will disappear. So you don't need any artistic ability to do this. I'm just drawing over the top of those lines. Right, so that's all the lines on the poppy coloured, or covered I should say. So now I'm going to bring in the darker shade of soft suede, and I'm just going to go over some of the areas where the image has got shading already. So again, it's just kind of colouring over the top of the lines, but this time I'm really focusing on where there are those detailed little lines that give you the shading marks. So let me bring back the stamp set, and I'll see if I can show you on here. So this is the box. Hopefully there's not too much reflection. So here, for instance, there is some shading in there, and here, and up there, and some shading here, a bit there. So I'm just following really what's on the image. I'm not having to think about where are the shadows. I'm not deciding where my light source is coming from or anything like that. I'm just darkening things up a little bit. There's some darker shadowing on the stems there. You cannot do that wrong, so don't be frightened of it. And now I'm just going to come back in with a light colour and just kind of scribbly colour over some of those dark areas, and that just helps blend them in a little bit. You can see I'm just scribbling. I'm not really even thinking too much about it. Just where I put down the darker colour, I'm just adding a little bit of light over the top. So that's my poppy. So I'm very quickly going to do these others, which I'm going to keep calling lotuses unless anybody tells me otherwise. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. I've got Crumb Cake this time, just to give a little bit of variation. This is the light Crumb Cake, and just wherever there is kind of an outline of the line drawing, so round the edges, and we've got some fairly dominant lines here. I'm going over those, but I'm not really doing the shaded areas. I will come back to those with the darker colour. So I'm aiming for hints of colour here rather than fully colouring the images. So here we go. Let me move that so you can see it. There we are. So I've done these. It's quite pale, but I'll bring in the dark crumb cake now. And again, I'm this time going to go over the shading that's already there on the stamp image. I almost always use the bullet tip in these markers when I'm colouring. I know there is a brush tip, but I just feel I have much more control if I use the bullet tip. But you may have a different preference, which is also fine. And then I shall do exactly as I did before and bring back the light marker and just scribbly colour over the top. So that's where we are so far. That's the light one. So I'm now just going to, I'm kind of going round in a circle, and I call it scribbly colouring because it's not very good. But it just helps soften the lines between the darker and the lighter. There. So that is as much of that as I'm going to do. But I am going to add a shadow. So this is where my ivory comes in. Just want a pale colour for this. I've gone with browns, so I went with ivory, but I could have gone with a very pale blue, very pale yellow, pale grey, pale green. It just depends what the overall kind of colours on your piece are. And for this I am just going to think about a light source, but not in a complicated way. So I think, okay, my shadow is going to go along the top and down the right hand side, or it could go along the top and down the left hand side, or it could go down the right hand side and underneath, or down the left hand side and underneath. So I just pick a combination of right and left and top and bottom, and it doesn't matter which you do as long as you're consistent. So I'm going to go with top and right. So that means along the top and right hand side of my images I'm going to draw a line with this pen. So I'm not trying to draw a perfect straight line. I'm going more like this, more like a kind of almost a sketchy line. I don't know how well that will show up, but hopefully you can see the movement of the pen. So I've gone along the top, down the right hand side. This bit is curving down, so that's really the left, but I'll pick it up here at the top and go all down the right hand side, right to the bottom. Here I'll make a judgment as to where the top of that starts rather than the left. Go along the top and all down the right hand side. The same on this one. And then I've just got this last poppy seed head here to do. There we go. So there's one more stage and then this is done, but let me lift that up so it's very pale, that shadow. And just to soften that even more, I'm going to bring in my colour lifter. And what I'm going to do is little circular motions like that all down the outer side of that line I've just drawn. And this just softens it slightly. So this colour lifter just has alcohol in it, and it just pushes the colour a little bit just to move it and soften it. And it's only a slight effect. If you don't have one of these, then you can still do this shadowing without it, but it just accentuates that kind of feathered edge of the shadow there, and that's that. So that is my finished set of seed heads. Let's move those out of the way. Right, let's bring in all the other components. I'm going to layer up the front of the card first of all. And you can see why you need to rest on some scrap paper, because those alcohol ink markers will go through. Right, let's put this on my brick wall piece. And I'll layer that on some vanilla, so I know I've got a very narrow border for this. And then onto my card base. There we go. So let me make the little piece for the sentiment. So I'm making another thank you card. As I explained earlier, I always need thank you cards. And I've got the thank you from Free as a Bird, this little one here. But you can obviously put whatever you like on here. It would make a nice birthday card. But, you know, again, these cards are great for thinking of you. All kinds of cards. I'm just going to move that down so I can get over the top of it. I'm hoping this will be straight. I'm not sure that it will be. Oh, not too bad. I'll take that. Mary's asking, what colour is the brick wall? It's Crumb Cake, Mary. That card is Crumb Cake. Just to pick up on the Crumb Cake markers that I used on some of the seed pods. So I stamped in Early Espresso ink. Then my markers were Crumb Cake and Soft Suede, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, light and dark Crumb Cake, light and dark Soft Suede, Ivory, and the Colour Lifter. And then I've stamped here again in Early Espresso. So I quite often cut flag ends into my little labels, but I decided not to for this one. This is just got straight ends. And there's not a lot else going on in terms of banners. I haven't got threads, I haven't got a layer behind, so I am going to pop this up on some dimensionals just to give it a little bit more interest. And as always, I use more dimensionals than a lot of people because I don't want this to get squashed in the post. You're very welcome, Mary. Okay. Fires has joined us. Hi Fires, nice to see you. Right, so I just need to stamp the insert now. So let's bring back that stamp. Like that, and then I'm going to use the same one on the envelope, and then our card is made. That insert inside. I seem to remember saying last week that this glue was almost finished. It's still almost finished. I must pull a new one out. There we go. So that's that one. That's the one with the contrasting paper on. So that's card number 2. I'm going to clean my stamps while you look at those. Stamp off all that excess ink. And then get them onto my scrub. All right, card number 3. Ooh, it's 3 o'clock. Well, I'm going to keep going because I haven't got anywhere else to go. But I will understand if you need to go on, because I say this is about an hour. So we've done the hour now, but I'm going to keep going for a little bit. Alright, so let me show you the card for this one. So this is a bit of a different size. This is not a square, it is a rectangle, but it's a kind of a squarish rectangle, if that makes any kind of sense. And I've gone with some greens on this, not just the browns. And I've stamped all over and then cut up my stamping. So I will show you how I do that. Now, I thought people are going to ask me about the measurements, so I have actually written out the measurements. I'm going to leave them there for you. Hopefully you can see them. And I'm just going to have some tea while you have a look at those, and then I'll try and remember to read them out as I go as well. Okay, so I'll move this measurements sheet aside. You can always rewind the video to find them, but I will also read them out as I'm doing the card. So I've got 3 colours of ink here. I have Crumb Cake, Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. And then I've got my little kit here. My card base is Mossy Meadow. And I cut this to 4 inches by 9 1/4 inches, and I scored it at 4 5/8 inches. So the card is 4 inches by 9 1/4, scored at 4 5/8. Chris says she and Angela have both just said, oh yes, I'm very pleased, thank you. So that's that. My insert is 4 3/8 by 3 3/4. 4 3/8 by 3 3/4. Then I've got a Crumb Cake layer to go on top there, which is the same as the insert. So that's 4 3/8 by 3 3/4 inches. The piece I'm going to stamp on is 3 3/4 by 3 1/2. 3 3/4 by 3 1/2, and this is the 3 3/4 here. So I'm having it landscape, although it does look very much like a square. And then once I've cut it up, I'm going to mount each of those little panels on a piece of Mossy Meadow. So I've got 3 of these, and these are 3 5/8 inches by 1 3/8. So the measurements are a bit fiddly, but if you've got, you know, a trimmer with 1/8 of an inch on it, you'll be absolutely fine. So 3 5/8 by 1 3/8 is the Mossy Meadow, and you need 3 pieces. So the only thing I need for the moment is my vanilla card. So I'll move those out of the way. The last bits to finish off with is I've got a piece of the braided linen trim. I don't know how much this is. I cut off a piece. It's 5 inches long. I may trim it a little bit shorter, but you won't need any more than that. And then I've just got a little piece of vanilla for the wording. Alright, so I'm using some of the different stamps this time. I'm using this one, which looks like poplar fruit to me, but I think it's supposed to be from a eucalyptus tree. I'm using this seed pod here, and these 2, which I think are physalis, Chinese gooseberries. And then I'm also using this little tiny one, which is just these little seeds. This is really useful as a filler. If you end up with gaps, this is going to be your friend. So here we go. Now I always start off with something like this with the largest stamps first. So this is my largest stamp. I'm going to stamp it in Crumb Cake. So let's do 1 across there, and 1 here, and then a bit of 1 here. I try and do things in odd numbers if I can, although I'm not. On something like this, you don't really notice how many times something occurs because it's going to be cut up, but odd numbers is good if you can. So this is Old Olive ink, and I'm going to bring in this one. This is the next biggest. And I don't particularly think about the fact that it's going to get cut up when I'm stamping. I just do the stamping. And the randomness just seems to work when it is cut up. So then I've got this stamp in a Mossy Meadow, sorry. Fit in there? Not quite. Let's do one down here. And then this one in Old Olive, which I think will just about fit in there. Yeah. So I'm just, you know, stamping them off the edges and so on, and I'm just creating a scattered design. I'm not particularly thinking about it. I'm just stamping and filling up the space. So this is this tiny little seed one, and I'm now just going to scatter these wherever I've got gaps that are too small for anything else. I'm turning the card, I'm turning the stamps. I don't want them to look like they've been stamped in a line. One more here, I think, and then that will be enough. There we go. So that's my card piece stamped. I'll shut up the ink pads. All right, so I'm now going to bring in my trimmer and I'm going to cut this. So this is my 3 3/4 edge here, and I'm going to cut it into 3 this way. Each of these is going to be 1 1/4 wide. So as long as I put it into my trimmer with that 3 3/4 edge at the top, I should be all right. There we go, 3 3/4. So I'm just going to cut this at 1 1/4. I don't know how well the numbers are showing, but take my word for it. That's 1 1/4, and so is this. Now I try and keep these pieces in order. I'm not a jigsaw puzzle person. If you are, then you can mix them up, turn them around and so on, but I try if I can to keep them up the right way because I want those patterns to match up across the front of the card. So the first thing to do with those then is to mount them on these pieces of Mossy Meadow card. And again, I'll try and keep them up the same way. And round the same way. There we go. Now once again, I've done very narrow borders on these, so if you don't like working with narrow borders, you will want to adjust the measurements slightly, but sometimes I do, and I just did for this because I'm adding lots of layers. I quite liked the narrowness of the borders. So that's my 3 stamp pieces. So I'm now going to pop them onto a piece of crumb cake, and again keep them in order and keep them up the same way, and I'm going to be checking as I go across to make sure that I've got all that stamping so that the images just flow right across. And what I should tell you to do really is to do the left hand one and the right hand one, and then pop that middle one in the center, because that means that things will look centered even if your borders are not quite as you had planned. But I think I've got away with that. There we go. But yes, stick left and right and then pop that one just in the center between them. Normally that would be a better idea. Here's my card base. There we are. So that's my card front finished. Let me stamp the insert. And what shall I put on there? I quite like this one that looks like it's come off a poplar tree. As I say, I think it's off a eucalyptus. There we go. And I'm going to leave this blank inside because I'm going to stamp thank you on the front, and so I want to leave space inside to write what I'm thanking somebody for. Now I just need to create a little banner. So I'm going to bring back my Mossy Meadow ink. Oops. And what shall I use? I think I'll use this one. In fact, I'm going to bring that back down towards me just so I can try and get my eyes over the top of it and stamp fairly centrally. There we are. And this one I did flag the ends on, so I think I'm going to do that again. So you may have seen me do this before. I always use my grid paper. You can use a ruler if you don't have grid paper. First of all, I trim it to size, and then I'm going to mark the centre of each end using my grid paper. And let me grab a pencil because I usually just make a little mark with my scissors, but you won't be able to see that. So I put it, there's a central line on grid paper, so I put this across the centre line and make sure that going to the right and going to the left is even, and that will means the centre line is in the middle, and I can just mark that with a pencil. Do the same the other way. And then to get my nice even banner ends, I snip in on that pencil mark, and then I snip from the corner to the mark and the other corner to the mark. And that means that banner is completely symmetrical. Sandy says, would I make my own envelope for this card? Probably, Sandy, yes. It will fit in a standard envelope. Let me find one and I'll just show you the sizing on it. So it fits in, obviously it's not as long as the envelope is, but it will go in there if you don't want to make your own envelope. But I probably would make my own envelope for that. There we go. So that's my perfect little banner ends. And I'll find, here we go, here's my trim. So you can, if I hold this up, I don't know if you'll be able to see that it is braided. You may be able to, you may not. But what I like to do with this, I almost never use it just as it is. I like to fray the ends, and they come unwoven very, very easily. And then I like to just pull it out. It's a very loose weave. Just to make it a little bit less regular, really. Let's see how that length is with this. Don't need quite that much length. There we go. And then I'm just going to fray out that other end. So I'm just pulling out the threads with my nails. As I say, they come very, very easily. I love this braided trim with anything natural. I also really like it with the Sand and Sea Sweet. Reminds me of sort of fishing net or something, or rope. There we go. So that's going to go on here somewhere like that. I've got some glue dots here, which I will hold it down with. I always use glue dots for ribbon or trim like this because they're really strong. They grab instantly, and if you use liquid glue, it just soaks through, so it can end up very messy. So there we go. So I'm not trying to put that on that completely straight. Just a little bit of movement in that, and then this will go over the top, and I'm going to use glue dots for this as well because this will be sticking partly down to that trim, and I know that they will stick to it nicely. So something like that. There Go, and that is my card finished. So those are the two that I've just made with this design. So I'll clean my stamps again and give you a couple of minutes to look at that. Let me see if I can also fit in the measurements. If I move those up just a little bit, so I can fit the measurements back in for you in case you want those again. Lots of noises off camera. Marjorie's asking, what do I make the envelopes from? And thank you for loving the cards, Marjorie. I'm very glad you like them. I still have a bit of a hoard of the old envelope paper, which we used to stock, and I don't know why we stopped doing that because it was fabulous. So I'm using that up, but if I don't have envelope paper, sometimes I use patterned paper. Usually I will need, you know, most of a 12 by 12 sheet, but if I've used patterned paper in my card design, then I very often pick the same design from the pack and make an envelope from it. Or I also use card, so Whisper White or Very Vanilla card, because it doesn't have ink added to it in the same way as the coloured cards do, is a lighter weight, and so it folds nicely and it's not too weighty for an envelope, so I quite often use that. And if I need an envelope for anything where I'm going to need a piece bigger than A4, of course we have that in 12 by 12 as well. And I mostly still use my envelope board, which we used to stock, but you can still get them from We Are Memory Keepers. But of course you can make an envelope by getting your card down, your card or paper that you're making your envelope from, laying your card in the middle, folding over the edges on all four sides and creasing it, making sure that your crease is just out from the card so you've got a little bit of space around it, and then open it up and then trim your flap, so you can make one just from scratch like that. Thank you very much, Chris. Did I say Antriana? Hi, nice to have you here. All right, so those are those. Move that out of the way. I'm just going to put a whole regiment of ink pads here filling up my table. I'm just going to move those. And the last card. Here we go. Now, I didn't tell you I was going to use the blending brushes, but I decided I couldn't resist, because I just started making the card and I just needed to use the blending brushes. So this is my last one. You're very welcome, Marjorie. All right, so what have I pulled in for this? So I have Early Espresso ink. I'm going to use the poppies again. And I'm also going to use the stamp which says A Little Note. That's in the same stamp set. Enjoy the moment. I've got one of my ink blending brushes. It's the one that I keep for my browns. I have also got a piece of stamping sponge here, just for doing the edges with, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is how they come. I always cut them in half, and then I cut each half into thirds, so I end up with 6 wedges from a sponge. These are super cheap. And then I staple a little bit of corresponding card to whatever ink I'm going to use on them, which gives me a handle and helps stop me getting inky fingers, although you probably wouldn't know it from looking at me. So I've got some ink there. In terms of my little prepared pack, I went with a note card and envelope this time. So these come in packs of pre-cut and scored cards. They're a smaller size, and envelopes. So there we go. That's what I've got for this, a note card and envelope, and I've gone with Very Vanilla again. We also do them in Whisper White, or Basic White as it now will be, because as you know, the Whisper White manufacturer sadly closed down due to COVID, so we've now got something made by a different manufacturer which we call Basic White. And then I've got a piece of ordinary Very Vanilla here just to work on. Now my background stamp here is the Birch one, which is really beautiful. I live in the New Forest. We have a lot of birch trees here, and this is just like the bark on them. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to be using that first, and then doing some inking over the top, and then stamping and cutting out the poppies to go on the top. So that's how this comes together. So let's do the background first. So this is my stamp. Now normally I would use this on my Stamparatus or on a big E block because it's really, really big. But for this, I'm actually going to use it in the box, and it's really easy to do. So I'm going to leave it in the box. The box is effectively my stamp block. And I'm going to take the ink pad to the stamp again because it's such a large stamp. It's much easier to do it this way. So I'm just tapping it on there as if I was inking it normally. And then I don't actually want this espresso ink to be full strength because it will dominate my poppies. My poppies are the focus, so I want the background to be more subtle. So I'm just going to bring in a piece of, this is just a bit of used grid paper, lay it over the top and take off some of that ink. So it's the stamping off technique, except I'm obviously not stamping off, I'm pressing off, I suppose, because I haven't got my stamp on a block. So there we go, that's taken off a lot of that ink. Now I'm going to bring my card layer and I'm going to pop it on here, try and keep it fairly straight. Okay, and I'm going to bring in more scrap grid paper, and without moving the card, so my card is under here, I'm holding the card in place, and then with my other hand I'm pressing it down, and by putting this grid paper on top I can really fully press the card, the vanilla card, down onto the stamp without worrying about how much ink I'm getting covered in. And then I'm just careful to peel that off and to not move my card layer when I lift it. So there we go. That's my Birch stamp done. So now I'm just going to go over this with a little bit of ink. So I'll bring back my same ink pad, Early Espresso, my blending brush, stroke it on the ink pad a few times to load it with ink, and then just work it on my grid paper. First of all, just to take off any blobs that are on there, but also just to make sure that that ink's kind of evenly distributed. And then I move my hand before I make contact with the paper, and then I just come across and blend the ink. And it's just so easy to do this. It really is. I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap paper actually, because I try and not hold the card directly when I'm doing this, because it's very easy to end up with fingerprints if my fingers are just a little bit moist or a little bit greasy. Then you can end up with fingerprints and the ink doesn't absorb into those. So a little bit more ink, check it, move it, and then make contact. And I don't want loads and loads of ink on this anyway, I only really want quite a light covering. That's probably just about it. Now I'm going to go around the edges just a little bit more. But to properly edge them, I actually like using a sponge wedge. I just find I can be a little bit more precise about where the ink goes. And get a more distinct distinct kind of edge to it. The brushes are fabulous for blending ink. I mean, that's just so smooth and beautiful. But because they're so good at blending, if you want less blending, they're not such a good tool for that. So I've dabbed my wedge of sponge in my ink pad, and I'm going to scrape it on the card, going just vertically down. So you can probably hear that. And that gives me a nicely sponged edge. I'm not going like this because I get square edges and I get blobs, as you can see. So always work vertically. You still get that lovely feathered edge, but it's putting down much more ink along the actual cut edge of the card and giving me that distinctive dark line round which I wanted. So there we are, there's that. So now I'm going to bring in just a scrap of card really to stamp my poppies on. So Early Espresso again. Hi Annabelle. Do we sell the wedge sponge? Yes, we do, Annabelle. They come in a pack of 3 full sponges like this, which I then just cut up with scissors into 6 wedges, cut it in half, then cut each half into thirds. Give me 2 ticks and I can tell you how much they are. Okay, let me have a look. I thought they were in the, never mind, I'll flick. I thought they were in the index. I can't find them in the index, but they'll be here somewhere. I know roughly where they are. She says. Okay, if I can't quickly find them, Annabelle, I will message you. I thought I was going to go straight to them. No, they're not jumping out at me. I thought they would. No, okay. I'll send you a message, Annabelle. Okay, sorry about that. Right. So let's come back to this. So I've stamped this. I'm just going to cut it out now with my scissors, which I've put somewhere. There they are. If you watched my session live about, was it 2 weeks ago, I think, where I was cutting, you'll remember that I said the easiest way to cut things out is to hold your scissors still, other than opening and closing them, and to move your paper or card, which is what I'm doing here. I've got my scissors angled slightly. And I'm just kind of wiggling around the outline of the poppy. It's a sketchy shape, so you can have a bit of a sketchy cut to it. I'm leaving a little bit of a border around it. Oh, Chris, thank you so much. Chris says they're $3.75 for a pack of 3 sponges, Annabelle. And do they come with a holder? No, they don't. I've just cut a piece of card. I used a punched shape, but you could just cut a rectangle of card. And I've literally folded that rectangle of card in half and stapled it to my sponge. You can see. So I've just put the sponge wedge inside that, folded it over the top and put a staple through. But not everybody bothers with the card. Once upon a time, when I was able to run face-to-face classes, I had all mine labelled with the card colour, the ink colour actually written on there, as well as the correct card colour for the sponge, just because that made it easier for people in classes. But and that's why mine looked like this. But you could use any old piece of card, but it does just give you a bit of a handle to hold. Okay, nearly done. So there aren't any dies with this stamp set, so if you want your images cut out, you will have to do it with scissors, but it's not too onerous and you really don't need to be very exact. If I hold that up, I need something dark. Let me pop it on my scrub just so you can see my cutting. Now, just to take the real whiteness off that, because I want some contrast, but I don't want quite as much as that, I'm just going to bring back my blending brush. I haven't put any more ink on this, but I'm just going to just go over the top of it, and there's just a trace of ink on the brush, just to take the very paleness off that there. So I'm going to glue that straight on my card, and then all I need to do is stamp my words, and then we're done. So I've just got a little strip of vanilla card here. I've inked my stamp with my espresso ink, and again I probably I'm going to move it where you can't see very well, just so that I can get over the top of it and try and stamp this in the middle. There we are. Cut this to size. And then I'm going to bring in my sponge again and just sponge a very narrow border around the edge of this, just so that it stands out from the background. And if you're gentle, again, I'm just going up and down, but just very gently, you can get a very, very narrow border. All right, it's assembly time. I've got very inky fingers. I hope I'm not going to transfer that all to my card. I should go and wash them. Right, I've got a bone folder somewhere. Go. So this is my card, which comes scored already, which is super convenient. And this size is really nice. If you might like to make up little packs of cards to give to people as a gift, it's a really good size for that. But it's also nice just for little notes or thank you cards, that kind of thing. There we are. So that is that card finished. The only other thing I'm going to do is just quickly stamp those poppies onto the envelope, just so it's pretty when it arrives. There we are. So again, same card but slightly different. This banner's a little bit longer. The inking will be different because it always is. What else? I've got the background stamp up the other way because there's this sort of knotty bit on it. So I've got that in two different places. But that is those two. I'm going to clear the decks while you have a look at that, and then I'm going to bring back all the cards from this afternoon's session. So if you have the Enjoy the Moment stamp set, I hope I've inspired you. And if you don't have it, you may have some in your collection already that you can use and do something similar with. I don't know if anyone's been crafting along. So if you have, make sure you send me some photos or post them below, because I'd love to see what you've made if you have been crafting along. And if you love what I've done, then you need to order the stamp set. It's a really beautiful set. It makes absolutely gorgeous cards. So let me pull. I've got two of everything, of course, because I showed you one and then I made one. Hoping I've got, hang on a minute, this would be more sensible if I did them this way, wouldn't it? And then put one at the bottom. That way. Do you know, everything's mirror imaged, so it's very difficult for me. I'm one of those people that has to turn the map around, so I can never work out if I need to turn things right or left. I think those are all in. There we go. After a lot of faffing, you're probably all sitting at home going, oh, for goodness sake, Sally. So that's 2 days. No, it's not. Hang on a minute. No, it's not, because that was my sample. That's the one I made. There we go. Were you shouting at the screen? Chris said no chance for nothing like quick enough. Well, I hope you'll craft afterwards, or at least at the weekend, Chris. There we are. That's better. That was the one I missed off. So, Annabelle says, are those all one stamp set? Yes, all the seed pod images are all from one stamp set, Annabelle. The only thing that's not from that stamp set is this thank you and the thank you I used here. Let me bring this in and show you. So this is the stamp set. It's called Enjoy the Moment. I'm hoping you haven't got lots of glare off the plastic packaging. There we are. Oops, my light's gone off. That won't help either. I'll come back on in a sec. There we are. Okay, so that's today's stamp. So quickly running through how I did each of them. So this one is stamped on watercolour paper, and then I just brushed over the ink with a water brush just to make the ink run a little bit within the outlines. My light's gone off again. It's run out of charge. It doesn't have a warning sign and it always catches me out. I've got it plugged in, but it's not good enough to keep going. Hopefully it'll come back on in a minute. So that's that one. The second one I did was this one, where I stamped the images and then I just went over the outlines with a light brown pen and then over the shadowed part of the stamped image with a darker colour and blended them together. So I used alcohol ink markers on here. This one I just stamped a piece of card and then cut it up and then mounted it on coloured card again. So you've still got that continuous design, but it's cut into pieces. And then this is the one that I just did, where I stamped a background using the Birch stamp. Oh, I should have said Annabelle, sorry, the background on here is a separate stamp. It's this one, which looks like birch bark. But the poppy image and the other seed pod images are all that one set. So yes, so I stamped the background, inked over it with one of the ink blending brushes, stamped and cut out the poppies, blended just a hint of ink over them just to knock back the pale colour of the card a little bit. And that was that. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will post an event here when I've decided what I'm going to do for next week. So every Friday I'm here at 2 o'clock on a Friday, about an hour. We're longer than that today, but I just got a bit excited with the stamp set. And I should really be turning you up and talking to you, shouldn't I? That's what I usually do, just to finish with, just to be a little bit kind of friendlier rather than talking to nothing. There we go. Let's turn this back up and see if you can see me. I might be on the skew, but I've done it to do it quickly. So yes, so next week, 2 o'clock on Friday for about an hour of crafting. My how-to next week is going to be cut your cards and your mats and layers, how to get those right simply and easily. And the actual crafting, I will let you know, but I'll pop an event on this page and let you know. It'll be early next week. I'll have a little think about what might be fun to do with you. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always lovely on a Friday to chat to you all. And if you've got any questions, let me know. Have a great weekend and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.